Why would you buy video games that you're never going to play? Why would you accumulate a whole bookshelf full of tomes you're never going to read? Why do so many people get into trouble cheating on their husband, cheating on their wife, starting an affair that they never intend to consummate, meeting up in secret with someone for a cup of coffee, meeting up to have lunch with someone who's forbidden, having Instagram messages back and forth that they hide from their husband, hide from their wife. But, oh, I would never actually sleep with her. As you get older, life gets better in so many ways. It really does. And something I sort of caution young people about is you can't imagine, as the decades go by, step by step, you can't imagine how you will be corrupted by the sweetness of this life. When you're young, you're lazy. You struggle against laziness, right? When you're older, you've learned how to enjoy yourself. You've learned how to be happy even when you're sitting and waiting for a flight in an airport lobby. You know, a teenager or a strong-willed young man in his 20s, you know, is going crazy waiting, you know, dealing with an airport delay. You know, all this passion and all this energy, they're like a wild animal on a chain. They're like a wild animal locked in a cage. You get past a certain age, maybe it is. Maybe you're at the airport and, oh, this is finally a chance for me to read that book. I've been trying to find the time to read. This is a chance for me to play that video game I've never had time to play. Yeah, but even if it's just a time for you to sit and think, sit and reflect, you know, or maybe get out your phone and have some text messages back and forth with someone you're flirting with. You know, there's a certain kind of enjoyment of life. You might be happier to be sitting in that airport for a few hours, you know. As you get older, it's easy in this way to be corrupted by the enjoyment of life, by the sweetness of life, some that in many ways younger people don't yet understand. But as you get older also, it's very hard to buy anything for yourself that will make you happy. You know, when you're young, the delight you can feel even in buying a newspaper or a magazine, in buying a pair of shoes, in buying a shirt, you know, in buying anything, and I'm not even saying for the first time. Maybe it's the first 100 times you buy something for yourself as a young person. You know, again, it's going to be different for each one of you in the audience. The excitement about how your whole life is going to change after you buy this new leather jacket, you know. I think it's easier for women to be honest with themselves about this than men. I had a Brazilian roommate, and he wasn't younger than me. He was just more immature than I was. And I remember how excited he was about clothing that way. And, you know, for me, it's like, oh, you know, that'd have to be a memory of when I was like 13. You know, already by 16, I was pretty cynical. 17, 18, I was pretty cynical about clothing. But for some of you, it's buying a car, buying a pair of boots. The excitement, not just of owning something, how owning that thing will change how other people perceive you. You know, there's a girl at school, there's a girl in class with you, whether it's university or high school, and she's going to see you differently now that you have this leather jacket. You know, for women, their fantasy is there's some man who is now going to notice them now that they have this pair of shoes. I read a long article from a woman, and that was her fantasy about eyelash, an eyelash chemical, a chemical treatment for her eyelashes. That now with these longer eyelashes, she was going to get this reaction from men in general, from one man in particular that she she hadn't gotten before. My point is, there's a lot of excitement about buying and owning things when you're young that's partly based on delusion, and it's partly based on fantasy about who you're going to be and who you're going to be perceived to be, how other people are going to perceive you and treat you once you make this purchase. You know, I understand my own psychology very well, and I went through a desperately unhappy time in which I bought about 90 cartridges for the Nintendo DS and 3DS, like regarding that as one library of games, one system to collect for, so to speak. And the majority of those cost me $5 each. Several of them, memorably, cost me like $1. But of course, there were some that cost $20, 20 Canadian dollars certainly, $30 a couple, you know. But mostly they're very, very cheap. But the reality is, even if it's just $5 per game, if you do that 100 times, it's $500. And the reality is, I spent more time searching for those things, finding them, buying them, and making the decision whether or not I would buy them. You know, Google around and look at some reviews for buying them. I spent more time buying them than playing them. It is only a slight simplification to say I never played any of those games for 1 hour, or I never played any of those games for even 10 minutes. In fact, there were 2 games that I played for more than 1 hour. 2 out of 90 purchases. The vast majority of the games I just popped in to check that they were working and never played them again, and have never played for even 5 minutes. But this is sort of a ton of research and this very complex kind of consumer process buying these games. And I know why. I know why. I know what I was going through. I know what I was struggling with. And it was a really dark, sad, terrible time in my life. And, you know, in the same way that I have bought books that I can never possibly read, you know, and the way in which I have bought myself birthday presents. It's a good example, you know, because I know that nobody else is going to buy me something special for my birthday. It's really this tragic attempt to do something nice for myself, to buy something nice for myself. When you know, there is nothing you can buy anymore. There is nothing that will make you happy. There is nothing you can own that's meaningful. And I even want to say this about books. After a certain age, after you're at a certain level of intellectual sophistication, it's only the books you write that matter. It's not the books that you read anymore. There's no longer anything meaningful in buying, owning, or even reading books. The image I use for this with my close personal friends is, it's like you go through a period of time in your life in which you're like a sponge soaking water up, and then you're into the phase of your life where you're squeezing the sponge, you're wringing the sponge out. And yeah, the meaninglessness of buying and owning those things, it becomes very difficult to bear. So, you know, why do we buy video games we never intend to play, or that as a matter of fact we never will prioritize and make time to play? Not even 5 minutes, so on and so forth. You know, I think it's because we're middle-aged people who want to feel alive in a certain narrow, specific sense, in which we have to admit to ourselves we're already dead.